Heartwarming truth revealed, Maid unexpectedly claims to be pregnant at CEO's billion-dollar wedding. In a lavish Chicago hotel buzzing with laughter and chatter, Sarah pushed a cart through opulent halls, her heart pounding. She could almost hear the gasps ricocheting off the marble floors. Today, the air felt electric, saturated with silk gowns and bow ties. Her hands, rough from years of scrubbing, gripped the cart tightly as she swept aside a curtain to glimpse the grand ballroom where the elite danced under chandeliers that sparkled like stars. Her dream was right before her eyes, a world of fortune, glitz, and dreams, unachievable for some, yet so close it made her chest ache. As she maneuvered between clinking glasses and giddy guests, Sarah's gaze locked onto a tall figure, David, the striking CEO, shining as brightly as the diamonds adorning the bride. For a moment, time froze. He met her eyes and suddenly, the enormity of their worlds crashed down on her. She was just a maid, destined to serve, while he was about to marry into wealth. Their brief connection sparked an unyielding longing in Sarah, the kind that ignites hope but also buries you in resignation. In a swirl of laughter and chaos, a guest collided into Sarah, sending her cart careening into the spotlight. "Oh no!" she muttered, realizing too late the potential consequences of her unexpected entrance. The laughter faded, all eyes on her as she caught her breath. Caught between panic and hopelessness, driven by her unguarded heart, Sarah blurted out, "I'm pregnant with his child." Eyes widened like saucers. Gasps echoed through the crowd, any remnants of joy shattered. What had she done? The room erupted into a storm of whispers and incredulity, as she felt the weight of judgment settle around her. Sarah stood at the center of a cataclysm, watching as David's face twisted from shock to fury. In that split second, she saw a chance to speak out, to break through the invisible walls that built their worlds apart. But at what cost? The buzz of chatter morphed into a fierce debate, one that raged about privilege and hardship. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah's heart raced as the room buzzed with disapproval. She felt like a moth, fluttering in the spotlight, unprepared for the charm of shallow applause and sharp ridicule. A woman's voice cut through the noise. "How could she say that?" echoed, dripping with disdain. Meanwhile, David grappled with his own turmoil, perhaps recognizing something genuine in Sarah that starkly contrasted with the shiny facades of his world. The aftermath left her vulnerable, standing alone against a wave of resentment. As the crowd buzzed and debated, the realization dawned on Sarah: she might have uprooted her life, yet it had sparked a transformation. In a moment filled with chaos, she took a stand. She questioned the very fabric of her existence and her hopes for Jason. What had begun as an impulsive lie held the potential to reveal truths much deeper than just the fantasy of a life intertwined with a CEO. Was this the moment that could change everything? Did she dare hope? As Sarah's eyes met David's for the last time that day, an unspoken connection lingered, a spark of possibility brewing in the air. The rift between them, once so broad, seemed to narrow, leaving all, including Sarah and David, unraveled and yearning to discover what the future could hold. The commotion faded into a dull roar, and amid the chaos, Sarah's pulse thundered in her ears. Faces blurred around her, a swirl of astonishment, judgment, and something else, curiosity. She felt exposed, every layer of her carefully constructed facade crumbling under scrutiny. The elegant ballroom, filled with laughter and shimmering champagne, now felt like a cage. David's icy gaze pierced through the crowd, and for the first time, Sarah could see layers of emotion flickering behind his sharp features. Fury? Confusion? But there was something else, too, a hint of concern, perhaps an unwilling recognition of a truth he couldn't ignore. It was maddening to think that she had become the center of his world, even if only for a moment. A thick silence blanketed the room as the guests processed her declaration. Whispers twisted through the air like vines, wrapping around her. "This is a scandal," someone hissed. "How could she?" Sarah clenched her fists, grounding herself. Deep down, she wondered if she had crossed an unforgivable line. She had always kept her dreams tucked away, out of reach. Yet here she was, bearing her heart in the most reckless way possible. Was there an inkling of truth behind her lie? Would it be enough to bridge the chasm between her humble life and his world of wealth? "Sarah!" A familiar voice cut through the noise. It was Maria, one of the other maids, her face a mix of shock and concern. Maria rushed toward her, eyes wide. "What are you doing? You can't just—" "Maria," the words tangled in Sarah's throat. She needed to make sense of this mess, to articulate the chaos that had easily spilled out. "I didn't mean to," but Maria's hand gripped her arm, grounding her in reality. "You need to leave. It's too much. You don't want to get into trouble, do you?" But Sarah wasn't listening. David had stepped away from the crowd, moving towards her with the grace of a man used to being the center of attention. The anxious chatter quieted as he approached, leaving only the sound of her heartbeat echoing louder than before. "Really, Sarah?" His voice was low and measured, threading wonder and disbelief together. "You're pregnant? With my child?" She swallowed hard, feeling the heat of 1,000 eyes on her. I didn't know how else to get you to notice me. I felt invisible." Raw honesty spilled forth, unplanned and unsettling. "I just wanted a chance. A real chance." David's expression shifted, confusion replaced by a flicker of understanding. His brow knit together, as if he were weighing the absurdity of the situation against the flicker of something they had shared in that single moment of eye contact. Around them, whispers churned once more, but their focus locked like magnets. Without the noise, they were alone in that sea of opulence. "What about Jessica?" he inquired quietly, glancing back at the bride, who stood in exquisite white, aware of the unfolding drama without comprehension of its depths. "She's beautiful, and you're making a mistake," Sarah spoke, her heart raw with sincerity. David held her gaze, searching, considering. In that heartbeat, the world around them faded. "What do you want from me, Sarah?" he asked, a hint of vulnerability cracking the ice in his tone. Her breath caught. What indeed? What could she hope for? As the weight of endless expectations crumpled around them, she realized this moment could mark a turning point. Not just for her but for David too. The strain of uncertainty hung thick in the air. If she asked for too much, might she ruin whatever connection had sparked within those stolen seconds? Before she could answer, a voice broke through, furious and sharp. "David, let us get back to the wedding celebrations. This, whatever this is absurd." It was Jessica, stepping into the space like a sudden storm, ready to reclaim her spotlight. The wind of high society drama threatened to blow everything away, but Sarah stood anchored, grappling with the reality of her words. Now, she would have to confront the truth of her own heart. What if this was her only chance and opportunity, not just for David but for herself? Would their worlds collide, or would they slip away into their separate orbits, forever unreachable? As she braced herself for the outcome, a thought fluttered in her mind. Was she ready to fight for something she wanted, or would she let her dreams vanish again into the ether? The wedding continued around them, but for Sarah, the future felt suspended, pregnant with possibility. What would she gamble next? And could David truly see past all the glitter to what lay beneath? The ballroom buzzed with a mix of tension and intrigue. Jessica's disruption had punched through Sarah's moment like a cold wind, stealing away the warmth of their connection. David's eyes flicked momentarily to Jessica, and in that brief instant, Sarah's heart sank. He was drawn back into her world, the world where everything was structured and expected, where Jessica stood as the polished centerpiece everyone admired. David, Jessica continued, her voice sharp and demanding. This isn't the time or place for whatever this is. Her gaze darted between them, seemingly dissecting the fabric of their interaction. We have guests to entertain. The guests, still lingering in the periphery, hovered like wraiths, watching the drama unfold. Sarah swallowed hard, each glance feeling like a dagger. What was I thinking? She muttered under her breath, her bravado fading. She had just thrown herself onto a razor's edge. But David was still there, his scrutiny fixed upon her. Slowly, the chaos of the room faded away again, and all that remained was the gravity of his gaze. What do you want from me? He repeated, a touch of desperation lacing his words. There was a flicker of hope in his eyes that ignited something within her, or perhaps it was just the flickering lights overhead reflecting off the crystal chandeliers. With a deep breath, she opened her mouth to let the truth spill out. I want to matter to you. I want a chance to be seen, to be known, to be more than a shadow in the background. Before she could finish, Jessica stepped forward, a wall of ice and frustration. Sarah, how dare you put this on him? He has a life to live, plans to follow. The scorn dripped from her words, underscoring their disparity. This is just a wild accusation. Taking a step back, Sarah felt small under Jessica's fierce gaze. But she couldn't let this moment slip away like grains of sand. I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm just revealing my heart. Each word was a pulse of courage, her voice stronger than she felt. David's features softened as he considered Sarah's words. And if it's not true? He asked quietly, the weight of expectation shifting beneath the surface. If you lied to get me here? For once, I just wanted to break free from my fear, she confessed. To be bold. I thought that maybe I could spark something real. The fear of rejection lay thick in her throat, but she pressed on. We both deserve to pursue what we really want. Don't we? Around them, whispers spiraled into uncertainty. Guests exchanged glances, each judging the validity of Sarah's claim. But the only exchange that counted, she realized, was the one between her and David. He took a tentative step closer, forging through the invisible divide Jessica had created. What do you want me to say, Sarah? He asked, voice steady yet gentle. I'm torn between the life that's expected of me and something I've never imagined. It felt like the room had shrunk, and all that existed was their shared pulse, beating with the weight of their unspoken dreams and desires. Just listen to your heart, she urged, vulnerability creeping into her voice. Let it tell you what you truly want. At that moment, a pregnant pause hung between them, thick with unresolved feelings. Sarah could almost see the swirling paths of possibility stretching before him, the safety of his familiar life and the thrilling danger of a brave leap. Jessica interjected, cutting through the air like glass, we should proceed with the wedding. There's nothing more to discuss here. Her determination was palpable, stirring the crowd back into motion. Feeling the pressure rise around them, a spark of defiance ignited in Sarah. She couldn't let this slip away. David, she called softly, refusing to be drowned out. This might be the last chance for us to truly connect. Are you willing to explore why you hesitated? His expression wavered between uncertainty and intrigue, as Jessica's annoyance twisted into a scowl. The world they inhabited felt suddenly heavy, and every choice loomed larger than life. As the gathering pushed forward, poised to forget Sarah's declaration, she realized it was not just a question of David's choice, it was hers too. Would she be swept away with the tide or fight for what she believed could be? Heart racing, she prepared for the answer that could change everything or reveal that all her bravado had been for naught. As David stood before her, torn between two lives, the moment of truth loomed large. What lay ahead, she couldn't know. But she was ready for whatever came next. Would David choose her? And if he did, could they create a love story from the remnants of heartbreak and chaos? The music muted, fading into a haunting backdrop as the words hung in the air like an unfinished sentence. David remained frozen, and Sarah felt as if she was standing on the edge of an abyss, begging him to take that leap with her. Time felt suspended, but the weight of expectation pushed against her chest like a heavy stone. Around them, the guests whispered, eyes darting between the spectacle of crisis and the dim spark of vulnerability shared between two souls. Jessica stood with arms crossed, brandishing her authority like a shield, but even she seemed unsure, caught in the shifting sands of what was unfolding. David, Sarah breathed, her voice more fragile than she intended. I know this is messy. But we can't ignore this, not now. Not after I put myself out there. The truth of her words wrapped around her heart like an embrace, soothing the storm within. David's eyes searched hers, trying to decipher the chaotic whirlwind of emotion swirling between them. For a moment, she thought he might turn his back and march back into the secure realm of Jessica's expectations, but then a flicker sparked behind his gaze. It was the spark of possibility, the inkling of adventure buried beneath layers of convention. Okay, he murmured, hesitating as if testing the waters. What if we pulled ourselves back, just for a moment? How far are you willing to go with this? The tremor in his voice betrayed his inner conflict. I'm willing to go as far as you are, Sarah replied, her heart pounding so loud it felt like the only sound in the room. It was raw honesty, and it felt terrifying yet liberating. What do you really want, David? Not what's expected of you. Not what's safe. What do you want? His jaw clenched and unclenched, and she watched him grapple with the choices laid before him. Every second that passed felt like a heartbeat, their connection stretched tight like a bowstring. Suddenly, Jessica broke through the tension again, her voice laced with irritation. This isn't some game. You can't just make these choices rashly, David. You have responsibilities. We have a wedding to finalize. There was a desperation in her tone, as if she feared losing the very fabric of her well-orchestrated life. Sarah's resolve stiffened. She couldn't let Jessica dictate their fate not any longer. But what about our futures, Jessica? What if David has a chance at something real? At happiness? The room seemed to gasp at her defiance, a collective intake of breath that held the possibility of change. David's eyes shifted back to Sarah, that flicker of hope now igniting into a flame. You really think, he began, but the words stumbled on the precipice of doubt. I do, she pressed, stepping forward, her heart aligning with each word. I believe we all deserve a chance to find our own paths. Even if that means taking risks. The crowd around them began to murmur, whispers of awe and disbelief blending into a tide of emotions. Sarah caught glimpses of their expression. Some faces showed disbelief while others shimmered with encouragement. It was as if their very lives were hanging in the balance, waiting to see if David would take the leap. A long breath escaped him, and Sarah didn't want to move. She wanted to absorb this moment, the uncertainty mingling with the electric charge of hope. She could see him weighing his options, contemplating not only what this meant for him but also the impact on everyone around them, on Jessica, the guests, and their shared past. Sarah, he finally began, but before he could push any further, Jessica surged forward, desperation coloring her cheeks. You don't understand the implications. We've worked too hard for this. For once, it felt as though Sarah was fighting for something larger than herself, a future woven with authenticity and love. It's not just about the wedding, Jessica. It's about happiness. It's about making choices that make you feel alive. A flicker of tension broke in David's gaze, and in that moment, a decision began to take shape. The world around them seemed to fade. A simple ballroom became the backdrop for an unfolding reality, a reflection of choices and consequences. As the whispers dimmed into silence, he finally tilted his head, meeting her gaze. What would he choose? The answer was somewhere in the depths of his expression, a mix of fear and excitement battling for dominance. And then it happened. David took a deep breath, ready to answer, but the sound of a phone ringing shattered the quiet, pulling everyone back to the reality outside their bubble. He turned away, eyes alive with a mix of uncertainty and determination, leaving Sarah on the precipice of action. The path of their stories would intertwine in ways none of them had anticipated, and she could feel the urge to seize the moment tightening around her heart. As the crowd resumed its murmur, anticipation rippled through Sarah. What lay ahead remained a question, an unpredictability at hand that was almost intoxicating. Would David embrace that future, stepping bravely into the unknown? But time was slipping away. She realized the moment was ripe, and if she wanted to seize it, she would need to act fast. Would she keep fighting for their chance at happiness, or would she fall back into silence, letting the moment slip through her fingers? The choice was hers, and the next chapter waited just out of reach. Sarah's heart raced as she watched David's silhouette turn away, his back a canvas painted with uncertainty. The sound of the ringing phone cut like a knife, pulling the world back into focus. She could sense the guests shifting, some leaning in whispers, others exchanging baffled glances. Time had snapped back into its relentless forward march, and it filled her with an urgent fear. She felt as if she were standing at a crossroads, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Each breath felt heavy, and every second that passed pulled her deeper into a spiral of indecision. Should she push forward? Or was it time to step back for everyone's sake, especially for David's? Jessica's irritation twisted in the air like a watchful hawk. "David, answer that," she snapped, crossing her arms tighter. The unspoken reprimand cut through the air, and the tension hung thick. David hesitated, his face a mask of internal battle. It was as if he were weighing her words against the anchor of his life, represented by the person waiting for his response. "Just a second, Jessica," he called, his voice edged in a clarity that surprised both Sarah and himself. He turned back to Sarah, his eyes filled with a mix of determination and fear. "Wait, are you sure about this? About us?" "More than ever," she whispered, fighting a wave of emotion that threatened to consume her. She held his gaze, willing him to see the truth in her heart. "We deserve a chance, David. We deserve to know what's possible." The fumble from his phone only intensified her hope. If there was anything that could spark a fire within him, it was this. And if it's hard? What if it leads to more pain than joy? "I can't promise it'll be easy," Sarah replied, her voice steady, "but I can promise that it'll be real. It'll be ours." David's breath caught for a moment, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features, and for a heartbeat, the world around them faded away again. The murmurs of the crowd felt distant, like waves gently lapping against the shore as they navigated tumultuous waters. Then, even from across the room, the unsettling buzz of the phone broke through. He turned to look at the device lying ominously on the table. "What if this call contains everything I've ever feared? Then let it." Her words tumbled from her lips, resolute. "You have a chance to change everything now. Don't let that slip away, David. Don't let her or anyone else dictate what your life should look like." He took a long breath, and for a moment, Sarah could see the thunderstorm in his eyes settle into something quieter, more reflective. Maybe it was hope catching up with the reality of their situation, a taste of what might be. Jessica could sense the shift, her tension boiling over into anger. "This is ridiculous. Are you really going to throw away everything for this?" What had begun as a simple wedding had morphed into something extraordinary, tearing through the illusions they cohabited. The whispers intensified around them, each voice stacking layers on top of the fragile threads connecting them. "Stop!" David's voice rang out, cutting through the chaos. "Just, stop." He faced Jessica now, eyes steadfast. The dam holding back his true feelings seemed about to burst. Sarah felt her heart in her throat, the words twisting around the inside of her chest. This was it. The moment of choice. Would he embrace the uncertainty with her, or would the weight of expectations pull him back into the safe embrace of the life he thought he wanted? "I need to answer this," he muttered, as he reached for his phone, his resolve wavering just a touch. "Or maybe you need to push it away," Sarah urged, taking a step closer, her voice trembling slightly but unwavering. "What do you want more, David? The wedding, or me?" The silence that followed felt electric, a moment forever suspended in time as everyone waited to see which path he would walk. The ghosts of their past loomed, but in that instant, something brighter beckoned, a raw, beautiful possibility. His hand hovered over the phone, the decision hanging between them like a tightrope, strung high above uncertainty. Would he take that leap of faith, heart fully exposed, into the unknown? The fragile thread of their connection was reaching out, ready to snap or take flight, depending on his next move. But deep down inside, the question lingered: could David really claim ownership of his own happiness, or would he let fear and convention take the reins once more? David's heart thudded in his chest, drowning out the frantic whispers of the crowd. He wanted nothing more than to reach for Sarah, to pull her close and drown out all the confusion that crowded his mind. Her eyes, brimming with hope, held him suspended in a moment where everything felt possible and everything felt precarious. "David," Jessica's voice sliced through the tension, sharp and demanding, "you can't be serious about this. It's ridiculous." She stepped forward, an anchor bound to a sinking ship, trying desperately to reel him back into her world. "Your whole life is at stake here." He didn't look at her. Instead, he focused on Sarah, searching her face for reassurance. The waves of uncertainty threatened to pull him under. But in her silence, he could sense a steadfastness. She was offering the kind of courage he never thought he could find in himself. "I don't want to live a life for anyone else," he finally said, his voice surprisingly steady. "Not for you. Not for anyone. I want to live authentically." The murmurs around them faded to silence. Sarah could hardly believe it. This was a side of David she had longed to see, a truth rising above the noise. "You don't mean that," Jessica spat, disbelief etched into her features. "You don't know what you're saying." But David did. Each word felt like a key unlocking the door to a truth he had hidden from for so long. He remembered nights spent buried in unfulfilled dreams, and mornings when he set out to wear a mask that never fit. It was suffocating. The idea of saying "I do" only to bear the weight of someone else's expectations had become unbearable. "I need to answer this," David said, lifting his phone again, but the tremble of his hand didn't go unnoticed. The fight inside him raged on like a storm threatening to tear everything apart. He glanced over at the name flashing on the screen. It felt like looking into the heart of a dragon, dangerous, alluring, terrifying. "Or maybe you need to put it down," Sarah suggested softly, knowing the risk of the moment. Whatever decision he made here would not only change their lives but would ripple out to everyone they loved. "What will it say about us, about who you are?" His breath caught. It wasn't just a phone call. It was a choice that could dictate the course of his life toward safety or into the chaotic unknown with her. The thought made his heart race, a mixture of exhilaration and fear twisting together. Jessica shifted impatiently, her arms crossed like a fortress she had built around herself. "You can get to the bottom of this later. You have responsibilities." "Responsibilities?" he echoed, pushing back the anxiety that threatened to consume him. "Are they really mine, or someone else's?" "David." Sarah stepped closer, vulnerability etched in the space between them. "What do you want?" The piercing intensity of her gaze seemed to cut through the chaos of the room, offering a sliver of clarity. Suddenly, he wasn't concerned about the wedding, the guests, or Jessica's furious expression. He was just here, in this moment, with Sarah, who dared him to be real. As he finally lowered the phone, he felt a surge of something that felt dangerously like hope but mixed with the fear of the unknown. The moment crackled with possibility, daring him to leap without knowing where he might land. Maybe I want to find out what it means to be happy," he stammered, more to himself than anyone else. The collective breath of the guests seemed to suspend time, and Jessica's eyes widened as if she'd just received the most shocking news. At that moment, David felt a shift within himself, a willingness to embrace the risk and to explore a path laden with uncertainty. But as he stood on the edge, heart racing, another message chimed from his phone, the tension gripping the crowd tighter. "David!" Jessica shouted, her voice breaking. "You can't just dismiss everything." What lay beyond mattered more now, but he felt the weight of their shared history pulling at him again. In that instant, the next call of fate loomed, begging him to either confirm a life he had always known or to willingly take a chance on something that felt breathtakingly new. But just as he opened his mouth to answer, a figure in the crowd shifted, and David's pulse quickened. "Wait, what is she doing here?" Sarah whispered, her eyes darting towards the door as a familiar face emerged. Would this unexpected visitor shatter everything they had just begun to build? Would her arrival turn David's moment of clarity back into chaos? The air felt charged as he turned, anticipation and dread swirling together. David's breath caught in his throat as he registered the figure stepping through the door. The low murmur of the crowd faded into a background static, replaced by the pounding in his ears. She was unmistakable Molly, his childhood friend, the one who always seemed to brighten every room she entered. But it was the look on her face that sent chills down his spine. "David," Molly said, her voice barely breaking above the growing tension, "I need to talk to you." Sarah's grip on his arm tightened as she exchanged a worried glance with him. The unspoken fear that this unexpected visit could derail everything they were slowly building was palpable in the air. David felt his pulse race, uncertainty swirling around them like a storm. "What are you doing here?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The crowd watched, rapt with interest as David spoke. He could sense the collective breath of the audience, as if they held on to his every word. Molly took a step closer, urgency etched into her features. "It's important. I need you to know I'm pregnant." The room fell silent. Gasps filled the small space, echoing off the walls like a sudden clap of thunder. It felt surreal, like a scene from a movie. "Pregnant?" Jessica shot back, disbelief spilling from her lips. "Are you serious?" The sharpness in her voice pierced through the silence. She looked as if she'd been slapped, her expression a mixture of confusion and anger. David's mind raced. He turned to Sarah, but all he saw was uncertainty reflected back at him. This wasn't just about him anymore, this was about the choices he had made, about the potential life Molly carried. "Is it mine?" he mumbled, the question hanging heavy in the air. He felt the crowd's eyes pinning him down like a bug in a display case, dissecting his every reaction as if that would tell them the truth. "David, please, I didn't know how to tell you," Molly implored, her voice cracking under the weight of her confession. "I just found out and I thought I could come here to tell you, but I didn't expect to find you amidst this." She gestured vaguely towards the chaos, the wedding that was still somehow ongoing despite the bombshell that had just dropped. The tension in the room was electric, the wall of awkwardness between them palpable as they stood frozen in the storm of revelation. David's heart hammered in a mix of dread and disbelief. He could feel Sarah's gaze burning into him, a quiet question lingering there, "What does this mean for us?" Jessica, now visibly shaken, took a half-step forward, asserting herself. "You can't just come here like this and expect everything to be all right. This isn't some casual announcement." Molly's eyes filled with tears, and David felt a pang of sympathy. "I know it's a lot, but I needed you to hear it from me. I've been scared and alone." As he absorbed this new reality, David felt as though the ground beneath him had crumbled. Who was he in this moment? Did he still get to choose happiness with Sarah now that the past had called him back? 1,000 thoughts crashed against each other like waves, each one vying for his attention. But suddenly, amid the chaos, there was a flicker of clarity. "Wait," he said, raising his hand slightly. "This isn't just about the two of us anymore. I need time to think." As the whispers began again, filling the room with confusion and speculation, David took a step back from the crowd, looking from Sarah to Molly and feeling completely adrift. He was at the center of a maelstrom, loss, love, and responsibility whirling around him. Can the past ever truly let go? He wondered. And before he could think, he was caught in a moment of raw vulnerability, which led him to ask the question that had been unuttered until now. Why did you come here, Molly? As David awaited her answer, he felt the weight of everyone's gaze upon them, waiting, holding their breaths, for the next revelation that could change everything once more. What truths would emerge from this unfolding drama? Would his past reshape his future, or could he forge a new path forward amidst the wreckage? Molly hesitated, the words catching in her throat. David felt the air grow thick around them, the anticipation a suffocating blanket. Everyone else in the room seemed to fade into a blur, their whispers and murmurs becoming a distant buzz. All that mattered was the look in Molly's eyes, the fear, the sadness, and maybe a glimmer of hope. I came here because I didn't know who else to turn to, she finally said, her voice steadying. I didn't plan this, David. The baby, it changes everything, and I thought you deserved to know now, not later. Not after everything you've built with Sarah. David could see the tears welling up in Molly's eyes. The realization struck him like a bolt of lightning, this wasn't just about him anymore. This was about two lives that could be forever altered by the choices he made in this moment. Sarah's grip tightened even more around his arm. David, she murmured, her voice shaking slightly. There was anger in her eyes now, mingled with confusion. Is this a joke? This isn't fair to us. David turned to her, feeling the heat of the moment more intensely than ever. It's not a joke, he replied softly, his heart racing. This is real. He could see the wrestling match happening inside Sarah's mind between the familiarity of love and the sting of betrayal. A part of him wanted to reach out for her, to pull her close and reassure her that they still had their future ahead of them. But uncertainty clouded everything. Why now, Molly? He pressed on, needing to understand why she had come crashing into their lives again like this. Why did you choose my wedding day? The corners of Molly's mouth twitched as a fresh wave of tears fell down her cheeks. Because I was scared, she admitted. Things have been difficult for me. I thought I could handle it alone, that maybe I'd never have to face you again. But I just couldn't keep this to myself. You deserve to know. Do I? David shot back, the words slipping out before he could catch himself. Anger bubbled beneath his surface, a boiling pot of regret and resentment. You think showing up today and telling me this makes everything okay? It doesn't. The crowd shifted, the tension escalating. Jessica shook her head, her expression a mix of disbelief and pity. You need to figure out what you want, David. Fast. David felt the walls closing in. He looked from Molly to Sarah, who stood rigid, her face pale. In those few heartbeats, he could see his choices splintering before him. What did he want? He wasn't sure anymore. Everything I did, every decision I thought I was moving forward, but now it feels like I'm being pulled back, he said, his voice cracking. Molly, if you're pregnant, I need to know, what do you want from me? The room was silent, all eyes glued to Molly. This answer could shift everything, set the course for so many lives. For a moment, it felt like they were suspended in time. David's breath hitched as he awaited her reply, the weight of their past pressing down. I need you to be part of this child's life, Molly finally whispered. I want you to be the father. David's heart fell into his stomach as her words echoed in his mind, father. That word changed everything. His future with Sarah, the dreams they had envisioned together, now hung in the balance. As he struggled with the enormity of that reality, he sensed the people around him watching, waiting for his next move. What would he decide? With every breath he took, every heartbeat, a decision loomed larger than life. Would he embrace a past he thought he could leave behind, or would he fight to hold on to a new love? Both futures shimmered tantalizingly before him, but at what cost would he forever alter their paths? The answer lay just out of reach, shrouded in uncertainty. David? Sarah's voice cut through the storm in his mind, urging him to break the silence. What was he going to say? Could he truly step into a role he had never expected? In that moment, the choice to embrace or reject his past felt as fragile as glass, ready to shatter with a single word. Would it be too late to reclaim happiness, or was he already standing at a crossroad where lives intersected in the most unexpected ways? David's heart raced as he searched for his voice. The room was still, shadows from the overhead lights cutting across faces filled with anticipation. He could feel Sarah's eyes burning into him, searching for answers, demanding clarity. But how could he give that when he himself felt lost? "Molly, please," Sarah urged, her voice trembling. "You can't just drop a bombshell like this and expect it to be easy for anyone." She turned to David, her expression desperate. "You need to tell her no. You have to choose us." Molly wiped her tears, the hurt unmistakable. "I'm not trying to ruin anything," she pleaded. "I just can't raise this child alone. I didn't want to come here today. I thought maybe if I stayed away, things would get better for me," but now she took a shaky breath, the reality of her situation stark against the backdrop of a day meant for celebration. "I need you, David. I thought you'd want to know." David felt torn, every fiber of his being twisted in knots. He glanced at Sarah, her face was a mixture of disbelief and sorrow. They had dreamed together, built a life full of hopes and plans. How could he betray that? The room felt claustrophobic. It was like a scene from a movie that had come to life. Everyone was staring, waiting, hoping for a resolution, yet the two women he cared about most were standing at opposite ends, their futures colliding in front of him. "David, please." Molly's voice rang through the tension again, pulling him back. "To me, you're still the person who once meant everything." The words hit him square in the chest. "And you're still the girl I had to leave behind," he said, feeling a twisting pain deep within. "I thought I was moving forward." "Forward?" Sarah's voice was sharp, cutting through his defenses. "Is this what moving forward looks like? Because it feels like a sinking ship to me." David opened his mouth to respond, but the words tangled on his tongue. The thought of becoming a father, of embracing the life he never sought, felt both terrifying and exhilarating. And yet, the prospect of watching Sarah crumble was equally unbearable. "David, I need you," Molly whispered again, her voice now a fragile echo. "You're not just facing this with me. It's your child too." Child, the word echoed in his mind. With each repetition, it consumed him. Images of a tiny face staring up at him, an unbreakable bond forming regardless of his choices. What did that future look like? Could he step into it without tearing everything else apart? "We can't do this here," he finally said, the weight of the decision pressing down like a physical force. "Not like this." "Then what?" Sarah probed, exasperation in her tone. "What do you want, David? Do you want to throw away everything we've built?" "I don't know." David's voice raised slightly, the strain of this moment boiling over. "I just need time to think." Time. A word that felt like it evaporated the moment he said it. Could he really take a moment when both women were standing before him, hearts on the line? As he searched for the right words, the silence felt suffocating. He looked to the crowd, who were merely spectators of this life-altering drama, their whispers a mere shadow of what was happening inside him. "I need," a thought slipped out, half-formed, like a fleeting shadow. He turned back to face Molly and Sarah. "I just need to be alone for a minute. I can't do this in front of everyone." With that, he stepped back, not committed to any path yet overtaken by the uncertainty of it all. Each step felt heavy with the weight of possibility and regret. "David!" Sarah called after him, her voice echoing with urgency and hurt. But he didn't turn back. Bitterness and dread pooled inside him like ink in water, darkening everything he had once cherished. How long could he hide from the truth? As he found a quiet space to breathe, he felt it deep within the truth was coming. What kind of father would he become? When the moment arrived, would he be brave enough to face it? The air hung thick with unresolved tension, and David knew the walls were closing in. A decision loomed ahead, and one thing was clear: whichever way he turned, nothing would ever be the same again. What would he ultimately choose, the familiar warmth of a life with Sarah or the daunting uncertainty with Molly? David leaned against the cool wall, heart racing. The air was thick, hovering over him like a heavy blanket. He felt like he was caught in a storm, swirling between choices that could change everything. In the ballroom, voices buzzed, but here, it was just him and the weight of reality pressing in. He closed his eyes, trying to gather his thoughts. Moments with Sarah flooded his mind: laughter over shared meals, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her dreams. Each memory was a spark of warmth, grounding him in how truly alive he felt with her. But then there was Molly, the unexpected emergence of a past he thought he'd left behind. "I need you," echoed in his mind, haunting and urgent. The depth of that statement nagged at him like a splinter. Could he really turn his back on the child who hadn't even had a chance to be? He rubbed his temples, trying to quell the whirlpool of emotions. Right now, the choice felt impossible. He didn't want to hurt anyone, but he also didn't want to surrender the happiness he'd just begun to grasp. Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts, and he turned. Her eyes met his, holding a mixture of worry and resolve. "You don't have to face this alone. We can figure this out together." He felt a rush of warmth at her words, a lifeline in the midst of chaos. But that pull from Molly also clawed at his heartstrings. How could he choose one without breaking the other? He stood there, heart pounding, feeling lost yet tethered in Sarah's fearless gaze. "What do you want?" she asked, sincerity etched into her face. His mind raced with thoughts and feelings. "I want you," he said, the honesty spilling out before he had time to think. "I want to explore our future, but…" She pressed gently, fists clenched at her sides. "But I can't ignore that I might be a father," he admitted, the word feeling foreign yet heavy in his mouth. No child should have to face anything alone. Tension radiated between them, and he could see her processing the moment. "Do you want to be a father?" Her question pierced through his doubts. "I don't know," he said, the weight of that uncertainty clawing at his insides. "I wish I could tell you it was simple. I never dreamed of this or you." Sarah's expression softened, eyes glistening. "Then maybe you should take the time, but don't let it drag you into a place you don't want to be." He nodded slowly, realizing she was right. Time, while sometimes a curse, could be his greatest ally here. He had afraid to choose, but perhaps carving out space would allow him clarity, a chance to discover what life would truly feel like if he chose authenticity. He looked back toward the ballroom, where whispers of uncertainty still echoed around him. "Can we take a step back?" he asked, trying to ground himself in this moment with her. "Of course," she said, stepping closer to him. "But remember, you don't have to navigate it all on your own." Taking a breath, he felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. Sarah was offering him understanding, empathy, the open heart he'd been craving, the kind of love that didn't just fill a void but illuminated the shadows of doubt. "I'll need to talk to Molly," he said, addressing the truth that hung in the air like a deep breath held in. "I can't just ignore her. I can't abandon a child if that's what this is." Sarah nodded softly, a gentle acceptance dawning in her expression. "And I'll be right here, whenever you're ready." With that, he found the core of his courage taking shape, a steady heartbeat that thundered through his chest. He was determined not to rush, but he also knew what he didn't want. He didn't want to ignore the truth in front of him. He turned back toward the ballroom, the sounds growing louder as he approached. The crowd shifted, all eyes now on him. He knew he had a difficult conversation ahead, but in that moment, he also knew a revelation was unfolding. His path stretched ahead filled with choices, but they were his choices, not dictated by expectations, not rooted in fear. David grounded himself, stepping forward with a mix of hope and uncertainty. He could feel Sarah's light behind him, anchoring him in the chaos. "Molly," he called as she caught his eyes, "let us talk." The conversation loomed ahead, heavy but necessary, and he was finally ready to face it. The murmurs subsided, but the tension remained electric. David's heart echoed with a new realization: he didn't have to have everything figured out. Instead, he just needed to start down the path of honesty and vulnerability. In that moment, he was ready to move forward past all the fear and into a space of potential, full of uncharted territory, a chance to rewrite the narrative of his life. As the sea of faces softened around him, he understood one thing clear as day: no matter where the road may lead, he wouldn't be lost. Together, they would reshape what love looked like, and amidst uncertainty, he felt a thread of hope pull taut against the chaos, eager for the dawn of a new beginning. This is the moment to choose your path. You need to subscribe now to witness the incredible journey of love and transformation that awaits. Leave a like now to fuel the fire of these stories and keep the algorithms happy. Comment below your feelings about David's decision and how you think it'll unfold. Share instantly to spread the love. Send this to at least 5 friends who need to hear the inspiring message of following your heart. Don't wait not even one more second to show your support.